The Champions League is back this week. Bayern Munich versus Arsenal. Manchester City versus Real Madrid. They said to me, Henry, the Champions League's fell off. It's nowhere near as good. We haven't seen great matches and drama. Well, that is a complete and utter myth. Last week and the week before genuinely was absolute insanity in the Champions League. Drama, big players, big moments, lots of goals. We're going to start off with Bayern Munich versus Arsenal. Now, at the weekend, both of these teams had a lot of bad news. Bayern Munich surrendered the Bundesliga title to Bayer Leverkusen. 11 years on the bounce, winning that league, has now got a new crown, and that is Bayer Leverkusen. And Arsenal, a lot of pressure on them. Manchester City won, Liverpool lost, and then Arsenal did not get the job done at home against Aston Villa. This probably is going to be the biggest game of the season for both teams. Bayern Munich have only got the Champions League to play for, and Leverkusen could do a treble. So they're going to put all of their resources into the Champions League. And Arsenal, this game could reignite their spark, because I see all over the socials, I see, in the streets and that, the Arsenal fans, they're chest out, walking around large and in charge like Vincent McMahon. All of a sudden, so now they've now got their towels between their legs, and everyone's telling me City are going to win the league. It's not over until it's over. City will be outright favourites, but if Arsenal can go to Bayern Munich and get the win, this reignites that spark and gives them belief again to go for the Champions League and the Premier League. If they lose, for me, that is a massive mental block in terms of the remainder of their Premier League season. They've still got to play Spurs, still got to play Man United, and still got to play Chelsea. If they're going to get anything out of this remainder of the season, they have to beat Bayern Munich. The biggest game of Arteta's season so far. And let's be honest, Arsenal we haven't seen the same Arsenal than what we've saw in the Premier League. In the Premier League, they've been one of the best teams this season. And they've been probably the best team up until this weekend. Their defense has been absolutely sublime, keeping clean sheets galore. Ray has been a very good addition to that team. But in the last couple of weeks, ever since that Bayern Munich game, it hasn't really clicked to them. Bukayo Saka hasn't been at his best. I think Jesus is completely out of form. Martinelli, whether he's carrying an injury or not. And it seems to be Martin Odegaard that's carrying the torch and really trying to drag them back into games. Now, I look at this game. The first game at the Emirates, I think Bayern surprised a lot of people. They were very, very organised. With Goretzka and Lerma sitting in front, I thought Leroy Sané was magnificent with his runs. He got behind that Arsenal defence time and time again. I thought Harry Kane took his penalty brilliantly. I thought even when Tuchel did make the subs, that a lot of people raised their eyebrow at, like Carlo Ancelotti's settings. Everyone was raising eyebrows saying, why is he taking Sané off? The performance didn't drop. Coman come on. He hit the post. Probably should have scored. But for Arsenal now, this is huge. You're going to one of the most iconic football stadiums in the world. You're going to one of the biggest teams in Europe. And this is all they have to play for. Thomas Tuchel's got a good record in the Champions League. He took PSG to their first ever final. He won it with Chelsea. If he wins this, he's going to get Bayern Munich into the semi-finals. And Bayern will give it absolutely everything they've got. There's no Davies for this leg. There's no Serge Gnabry for this leg. So it's a lot riding on this game. I'm going to say Saka, I think, will have a much better chance at getting in behind that Bayern Munich defense, because there is no Davies now. Davies, we know how quick he is. He's like Bayern Munich's road runner. He can afford to give you 3, 4, maybe even 5 yards and still get back and recover. He's kind of like Bayern Munich's Kyle Walker to a degree. Got a big future ahead of him. But if they can get behind that defense and use Saka and Odegaard, and they play like they have in recent weeks in the Premier League, ever since that trip back from Madrid, then Arsenal can win this game. The fear I have if I was an Arsenal fan looking at it, is Bayern Munich have got a very good record at the Allianz against Arsenal. I think they've only lost once. In the knockout games, I don't think they've ever lost to Arsenal in the Champions League. I could be wrong on that. And Harry Kane is the biggest threat. He is in the peak of his powers. Nearly 40-odd goals this season. Took his penalty in the first leg very well. I thought his distribution out wide to Sane and Gnabry was perfect. If they can stop him with Gabriel and Saliba, I don't think Bayern will be playing many balls into the box. We've seen Saliba and Gabriel box out early in Haaland in certain games, and we know how aerially dominant they are. But the way you beat Arsenal is play it in behind. We saw that with Unai Emery. Tactically, first half was all about, sitting deep, defending while we can, everyone marking man to a man. And that was an Aston Villa team that didn't have Douglas Luiz, who's been one of their best players this season. But in the second half, we saw Arsenal step up. They categorically cannot play Zinchenko this game. Like, if they play Zinchenko in a one-on-one situation up against Leroy Sane, he will be licking his lips. If they play Tomiyasu, who's a lot stronger in the 1v1 situations, it gives Arsenal a much better chance of winning this game. I do think Arsenal can get a result, but I think this one could go the distance, extra time, and maybe even penalties. Let me know your thoughts down below if you haven't already. And then we've got the record holders against the current holders, the Galacticos against City. This game alone should have been a final. In the last couple of years, we have seen some absolutely brilliant football matches between Manchester City and Real Madrid. And the first leg did not disappoint. 3-3, bangers from Valverde. Phil Foden scores an absolute beaut. And Vardial with a worldie. He's really starting to get into his groove now, Vardial. That game genuinely was unbelievable, Two of the best teams in the world going head to head. Manchester City going to the Bernabeu, scoring 3 goals and still not getting a win, having 62% possession. In terms of shots, in terms of created chances, I think it was very even. I think Man City going early up surprised a lot of people. Silva scores from a freak free kick. No one really thought the goalkeeper would be that stupid, but he was. And I look at this game and think, for Real Madrid, it's all about surviving the first 20 minutes. City will be buzzing. If they beat Real Madrid, the likelihood is that gives them huge, huge confidence in the FA Cup game against Saturday against Chelsea. And we know how good Chelsea are playing at the moment with Cole Palmer. But for Manchester City, they're on the verge of breaking history. The first Premier League team to do 4. The first team in football history to do back-to-back trebles. Probably the greatest footballing moment of all time that will be. But you are up against the Galacticos. And if any team can go to City and win using their players like Valverde, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, the front line of Vinny and Rodrigo. But Jude Bellingham's the one for me. Jude Bellingham has got to step up this game and deliver. We've seen Manchester City are not the same as they've been in recent years. They're conceding goals. They can't keep a clean sheet for toffee. They've got 1 clean sheet in the Premier League since the 24th of February. They are in a different mindset, Man City, now. It's all about managing games. Years ago, it used to be Man City are going to blow everyone away. The 100-point season, the 100-goal season. But last year, they've got this knack of coming alive in the big, big moments between March and May. That is when Man City come alive. And they are better than anyone in the Premier League at doing that. But this is a Champions League game against Real Madrid. I'm going to say it, though. I think Manchester City win. The way Phil Foden's playing, and I've been very impressed with the way that Pep's rotated Foden and he's rotated Kevin De Bruyne. I think you have to start one of the two. I think Phil Foden plays his best football in the 10, as well as Kevin De Bruyne. Pep will probably play the 4-3-3. He'll probably play, De Bruyne in the 10, Foden on the left. And if you look at the first leg, he actually put Kevin De Bruyne on the bench. His front three was Bernardo Silva, Foden in the 10, and Grealish on the left with Haaland up front. And they still managed to do the business. Does Pep change that and potentially go to a midfield of Foden on the left, De Bruyne in the 10? I think Foden's been Man City's best player by a country mile this season. Even though Haaland's got 20 goals, I think Foden's been unbelievable. The amount of worldies he scored, you know, hat tricks, worldies at the Bernabeu, man of the match performances like they're going out of fashion. I think for Manchester City, you start Foden and you bring on De Bruyne around the 70th minute if things aren't going to plan. However, last season we saw Manchester City absolutely destroy Real Madrid at the Etihad. A very similar situation happened. They went to the Bernabeu, got a draw, and then they blew them to smithereens. This game, however, I think Ancelotti's probably going to learn from that mistake, and will go again and will try to come out to play. But we know that's Manchester City's best hope, is they hope you leave space in behind, come out to play against them, so then they can exploit that space with the likes of Silva, De Bruyne, Foden, Grealish, Haaland, Alvarez. Like, the weapons they've got on the bench, like, it's absolutely insane. Their bench against Real Madrid earlier in the first leg was Alvarez, Doku, De Bruyne, Nunez, Oscar Bob, Rico Lewis. These are all impact players that know the system down to a T. And Guardiola has got a very good record against Real Madrid during his time at Spain and during his time with Manchester City. I know he had that wobble a couple of years ago where Rodrigo stepped up and managed to score 2 very, very late goals. But I do think Real Madrid will not get it done this time. And I think Manchester City do it again. And then it's going to be probably Manchester City trying to go all the way. But the semi-finals is mouthwatering. You could potentially have Arsenal versus Man City in a Premier League title race and Arsenal versus Man City in the Champions League semi-final. If that situation happens, it opens the door up for Liverpool back in the Premier League title race, because there's nothing you're going to want more as a Liverpool fan than these two hammering 12 rounds out of each other. But I'm going to say it. I think the Bayern Munich Arsenal game goes to the very, very end. And I think Man City beat Real Madrid. That is my Champions League quarterfinal, second leg predictions. Let me know down below, who do you think is going to win? Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe.